statement that when you were talking about the synthesis and your journey and studying and who can do it and who can't, and so you mentioned that one particular sentence that you said, even after all this time, there are still so many shubuhat that you have no answers to. Now, if 10 years in Medina and I don't know how many years in Yale, still
8 years, unfortunately. I took too long for my PhD.
So if after, is that 20 years? It's a very long time. If after such a long time, someone of your caliber still has no answers for so many shubuhat, then this is the question of today. How are we going to be relevant today? Because these shubuhats are the ones that are becoming public questions. These are the ones that we have to confront. People are waiting for answers. And if we are unable to, then...
So, the answers to those shubuhat are not necessarily aqli. Here is, I think, the big issue of our times. We assume every single answer has to be aqli or rational. In the end of the day, there are answers that are fitri. And science does not recognize the fitra. Simple example, which kind of gets to the heart of Ash'arism and Atherism, existence of God. One of my entire chapters of the PhD was Ibn Taymiyyah's proofs of the existence of God versus the Ash'ari proofs of the existence of God. The existence of God, and this is my opinion, and I know there's some disagreements here amongst other schools of Islamic law, Islamic thought, is something that is primarily fitri and not aqli, as much aqli. And the reality that we have in our times demonstrates this. You have the most intelligent people in the world, by and large, denying God's existence. Most scientists in the world are agnostic and atheist. Because it's not purely aqli. There's an element, in fact, the predominant element, it's something that is fitri. Afillahi shak. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, how can you deny Allah? It's something Allah Azza wa Jal put it in us, right? وَإِذَا خَذَ رَبُّكُمْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً وَيَشْهَدُهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. This is the mithaq. It's ingrained in us. I can't prove it to you that it happened, but it's there. So I cannot answer every shubha from an aqli perspective, because not every shubha has an aqli response. There has to be a time when you, as I said, you just say, Sami'na wa ta'ana. I mean, honestly, the existence of evil, for example, theodicy, the fancy term, humanity has been grappling with it from the beginning of time, from the pre-Socratic philosophers. Every theologian since the beginning of time that believes in God has attempted to reconcile why is there evil? Why did that young child die of starvation? Why did this? Why would a God do this? And no matter what evidences you give, no matter what aqli things you say, for every if there's a what if, for every and there's a but, for every why there's always a never-ending loop. In the end of the day, you just have to accept this is a world that has some evil in it, and it's for a wisdom Allah knows. That's not an aqli answer, is it? It really is iman bil ghaib, because you cannot give a fully rational answer for the existence of evil. Because if Allah had willed, He could have made a Jannah on earth. If Allah had willed, this could be a Jannah. But Allah willed this is not a Jannah, and He tests us for Jannah. Why does He test us? Why? For every, and that's why even in the hadith, what did the Prophet say? Shaitan will come to you, and he keep on asking you this, until he would even ask you who created Allah. Then when you get to that point, what should you say? Amantu billah, and close the door. Right? Is that an aqli response? No. You just stop. That's a fitri response. So it wasn't meant to terrify you that not every response exists. It was merely meant to indicate not every response has a rational answer to it. Not every question, excuse me, has a rational or scientific answer to it. That's really what I meant. And there has to be a time where you just agree that you're not going to go anywhere by thinking more deeply about this issue. That's what I meant when I said that it doesn't have an answer. Does that answer your question though?
It does, but at the end of it still does not. I mean, these are questions that maybe we don't need to delve into the sifat of the existence of God, but it still does not answer practical, everyday challenges of the ummah. Like I don't want to go back to the LGBT issue, but like the LGBT issue, I can't think of any other at this point in time.
So why would Allah create somebody with those tendencies when it's not halal for them?
Instance,
That's exactly the evil. Goes back to theodicy. It's exactly the same issue of theodicy. Why would Allah do this? Why would Allah do that?
But however,
and there is no easy response, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Last month, for instance, we had a conversation similar to this with a rabbi, and he discussed how their congregation or their theology dealt with this, for instance. So he gave an alternative response. While he said, we politically agree with them, we morally don't agree with them, definitely.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they went a step further. That step further that they went to was, they said, we can't stop the rights from getting married. If they want to get married to same-sex people, that's fine. Go ahead. We can only talk to them on the moral level as a Jewish person. That does not stop you from being a Jew. I can talk to you about your relationship with your Lord, which is completely private, even if you're sleeping on the same bed with someone on the...
But
you know,
I would say the same thing. What that person said is exactly what I would say.
Yeah, but that would require that we delve into... These are shubuhat, and that would require a lot of rational understanding of why we would say something like this. So there are shubuhat, and there must be some kind of rationalization and reaching to some kind of...
To a point.
I'm not this, yeah, to a point, but we have to deal with shubuhat, even no matter how difficult it might be.
Agreed, agreed. But all I can say is, again, with you brought up the issue again of LGBT, you cannot have unless you can tell me one, I don't know of a solid intellectual response to the simple question, why would God do that? There is no answer. It's the same issue. Why would God cause tsunamis? Why would God? There are things that لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. In the end of the day, لا يسأل عما يفعل. We don't have the right to question God. So that will lead some people to question His existence. Because if they don't understand the God they're going to believe in, they end up rejecting the God. Whereas for me, I think it is far more logical to believe in a God, and I don't understand certain things, than to reject a God, and then I have a whole million other questions that are unanswered. So there is no answer for this question other than to say it only works to a certain amount of time, and also for a certain group of people. Atheism, for example, cannot be solved intellectually. The person, in the end, his fitrah has got to want to believe. See, I have a position, again, it's my personal opinion. Atheism is not an intellectual problem, it is a spiritual problem. This is my opinion. And atheism cannot be argued rationally. You just deal with it a few minutes and then that's it, leave. Because the Quran itself does not cater to atheists. There's only 1 or 2 verses that cater to atheists. There's at least 500 that cater to pagans. The Quran gives paganism more intellectual credit. Worshipping an idol that you carve with your stone. At least 500 verses catering to pagans, mushrikun. And with great difficulty, you'll find 1 or 2 verses that cater to atheists. Afillahi shak is one of them. And then the other one is Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in am humul khaliqun. These are basically the only 2 verses that are pretty much explicit about atheism. That's it. And that's all you have in your arsenal in the Quran. Because atheism cannot be responded to fully intellectually. Like Ibn Taymiyyah says, and this is a big difference between the Athari and the Ash'ari creed. Because Ash'arism and Maturidism, Mu'tazilism, and it's based on the premise you can prove God intellectually. Whereas Atharism is basically, as Ibn Taymiyyah says, the famous quote, how do you expect me to go find proofs for Allah's evidence for Allah's existence when everything around me is screaming His existence? There's no point in complicated proofs. Complicated proofs never won one person in the history of mankind. All from the cosmological to the teleological to the... Nobody ever converted to the moral, to Pascal's wager. None of these proofs actually ever worked in real life. Do you see my point here? People refuse to believe because it's not an intellectual problem. It's a spiritual problem. So I think, and the problem LGBT, the problem is directly linked to this issue. If you cannot understand the wisdom of Allah, are you still going to believe in Allah or not? That's the question. And that is Iman bil Ghaib. And I know my time is up.
Thank you very much. Please allow me to offer an intellectual and accurate response to invite everybody to thank you for once again, thank you very much, Dr. Qadhi. I think everybody has benefited substantially from the discussion. I have enjoyed so much. I wish we could carry on, but we have to accept the fact that Dr. Qadhi has another engagement tonight.